just like earlier with fear bonding, this stream is actually part of a series of streams I'll be doing for the Steam Fall in Love Festival. So this is ongoing right about now. I was thinking about what to say earlier, and of course the second I start my stream, I start, stumbling over my own words, and the game's too loud. How about this? Is that better? Is it fine? Is it too loud? Is it perfect? I can start again. Maybe this time I will not stumble over my words. That would be fantastic. Also, please be the right image. Yay! Okay, let's try that again. Andarana Tishandalan, and welcome to Made Marion. Again, just like with fear bonding, I'm streaming this as a part of the Steam Fall in Love Festival, which is currently ongoing and has started today. So if you're interested to fall in love and play some visual novels, that is right now, starting at this moment. Well, actually a few hours ago, but starting today. And for this stream, I'll be taking a little look at Made Marion, as I was saying, which is a otome visual novel which puts you into the shoes of the titular Marion from the Robin Hood legend. Not as a fox this time, I'm afraid, but I think we will manage. I think we will be fine. The game is still in early access, and it plans to have several routes, each of about 60k words or more. And also the developer Velvet Cupcake Games has kindly provided me with a key so I can check it out right now while it's still in early access. It looks stunning, it does. I really like listening to the music as well. I have been taking a little teensy-weensy look at it already, because as per the suggestion of the lead developer, Becky Cunningham, I will be starting my stream at the common route, and we will see where, it will take us from there, because as early access might imply, the game is not finished. But yeah, that's why I was able to hear some music already, see some dialogue, read a little bit of the glossary. I do have to admit, I was kind of trying really hard to get to this point, so I will play this again when it's completed and read it a bit more slowly. So I might not be able to answer all questions, but if you're at all familiar with Robin Hood, you might be able to put one and one together sometimes. But on the other hand, there's also, as I was saying, the glossary, so we can A, check it out, and B, click on some words during the game. And maybe, just maybe, learn a little bit more. I will also be putting on the intro cutscene, even though I know it's not completed, just because there's gonna be some background knowledge that will be explained there. And I didn't listen to it myself yet because, well, as I was saying, I was trying to get to the decision point. So that'll be mostly new for me as well. I have seen like, what, 20 seconds of it before I decided to not do it right now. But anyways, it do be looking great. It is a stark contrast to what we played earlier. And I am just about ready to fall in love. Current early access status. Prologue, Full Common Roots, Robin's Route, and Will are all available. We have to choose Face Your Destiny and reach the Sherwood Common Route. There's also the lore intro, which has full text and vocal narration, but full graphics are not available, so we will be seeing it a little bit, I guess, chopped up. I didn't see it yet, so... Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna watch this.
For time immemorial, the people of Avalon have shared their land with the mystical Fae folk. These near-immortal beings occupy a mysterious world that is deeply connected to Avalon's natural landscapes. Magically sensitive humans, known as druids, can see and communicate with the Fae. They are able to exchange life energy with these otherworldly beings for magical power. In ancient times, this exchange was capable of producing great feats of magic. But while the Fae are content to simply exist day to day, human beings are ambitious, emotional, and greedy. As Avalon's cities grew, the forests upon which the Fae depended were cleared. As different factions fought, druidic magic tore the land asunder. Human life is so short, and their life energy so enticing. The Fae didn't notice the danger until they began to vanish, along with their ruined woods and mined mountains. That is when the wisest and most powerful Fae lords began to fear for their race's continued existence. They offered an ultimatum to the powerful human lord Arthur. Humans would enter a pact with the Fae that regulated land use and magical power, or the Fae would wipe humanity from the face of the world. Under the pact, the Fae would be given control over land use to be negotiated with their human neighbors, ensuring the survival of Avalon's wild places. Druids would have their power severely restricted, and the old ways of power exchange would be outlawed and forcibly forgotten. Even human fertility would be placed under Fae control to avoid overpopulation. In a land racked with conflict, Arthur also worried for the future. He accepted this pact. Arthur gathered the greatest knights of the realm to his side, and together they conquered and united all of Avalon under one rule. First, the lands of Central Avalon bent the knee to Arthur and his knights. Then, Arthur defeated his own sister, Morgana, for control over the Kingdom of Brittany to the south. Only the wild Stenish tribes of the north and their Fae neighbors refused the pact. Unable to conquer them, Arthur's druids raised a mighty magical wall that separated Stenland from the rest of Avalon. With the pact now firmly established, King Arthur went on to create an ordered society that has lived in relative peace for 500 years. All folk in Avalon have their proper place. Serfs work the land. Free commoners toil in the cities. The nobility rules and protects the common classes. Druids assist society and negotiate with the Fae. But times change and people change. Suffering in the shadow of a war that barely staved off foreign occupation, today's Avalon has begun to question this ancient order. With a nobility that has grown too secure in its position, and an emerging middle class that seeks more representation and power, the land is ripe for conflict once more. And one young Avalon noblewoman named Marion is about to find herself swept up in that conflict.
And that's us. Yeah, as I was saying, this is not complete. As they were saying, that is not complete. But it started off really well. So, you know, I am excited to see more of it. Just so you can see, that is us. That is how we will be represented in this game. We are Marion, and let's see what we are made to do. Also, what happens when I... Oh wait, I can just do this. Yes, please. We can't fight our fate yet and escape from this arranged marriage we found ourselves in. So there's only one thing we can do now, which is to face our destiny and plan to marry Lord Joffrey. God damn it, Joffrey. It was time for me to face up to my responsibilities as a noblewoman. Perhaps this was not exactly how I dreamed it would happen, but my life had always been headed in this direction. I would marry Lord Joffrey and become Lady Nottingham. With that decision, I could face my future with clear eyes and a clean conscience. And if something unexpected were to propel me onto a new and different path, I was prepared to take on that possibility as well. Oh, I love this! Chapter 1, Sherwood. Some most unusual bandits. So this was Sherwood Forest, a vast forest south of the town of Nottingham, known for being particularly wild and magical. Nottingham Holding encompasses most of the forest, making it a complex holding to run. And not only can you get a little bit of info here, you can even click on this. A holding is a parcel of land governed by a lord. Central Avalon is divided into holdings large and small. Marion is from the small rural holding of Glastonbury. Nottingham is the largest and most important holding in its region. And in case you've never heard of Robin Hood, Nottingham is a bustling, mid-sized city, sometimes still called town by tradition, north of Sherwood Forest. A crafting town historically, it's also the perfect location to handle trade from the newly opened kingdom of Nibiru. It is thus of great interest to Avalon's current ruler, Prince John. And one last, Nibiru. Thank you for the apple. You know, some say throwing an apple at someone is meant to be a sort of marriage proposal. Others have long since debunked it, so you know. Nibiru, a reclusive, closed-up kingdom on a continent to the east of Avalon, known as the Twilight Kingdom. Its people are semi-nocturnal and practice a celestially based form of ancestor worship. do I want to make a Twilight joke, or do I want to be like Twilight Princess? Honestly, I want to go for Midna, cause like Twilight. My cat is watching you too. Well, hello there, little one. Midna. Yeah, okay, Midna. I gazed out the window of my carriage, watching the sea of green roll by. Sherwood appeared far more lush than our local forest in Glastonbury. Huge broadleaf and pine trees were coated in emerald moss, anchored by an explosion of verdant brown cover. The green upon green seemed to stretch on forever. Here and there, I saw particularly unusually magically enhanced plants that stood testament to this massive woodland being, a seed of power for the Fae. You gazed out the window. Actually, I'm not sure I can be gay in this game. To be fair, there are very few things I have seen about this game, because a little bit of info here. I did hear about this game a long time ago. Like a really long time ago. Probably not as long as I make it out to be now. But I did hear about it, and I thought it was gonna be quite interesting, and really, it seems like I was correct, but also I kind of forgot about it until now. So I'm really glad they reached out to me, and I can see it now, because, and I didn't want to say it right at the beginning, but this is probably the game I've been most excited to play out of all the games I've been kindly provided keys for. And it does sound quite amazing. But going back to what I was actually trying to say earlier, is that I have seen a very few screenshots, and I think that I remember seeing some love interests, maybe. If they're not, they're just really neat character designs. There's also a character that I have seen in the prologue that I hope you can date, but also I don't think you will be able to do that. But for the record, if this particular character gets to be dateable, that one will probably be the one I will try to date first, even though I usually try to date the one I want to date most last. Not sure why, because usually you would be like, oh yeah, save. No, you wouldn't be like, save the best for last, but I almost always do that in dating sims and games, so. What's his name? He didn't really get one. Just remind me when he comes up. I'm not sure if he will again. At least not here. But we will see. We will see. Okay. I tried to distract myself from my dark thoughts by imagining the Fae cavalcade beneath the forest boughs, despite being quite unable to see them myself. I wasn't normally prone to flights of fancy, but... Oh, shadows! Oh, shadows! I cursed softly. Nervously, I wiped my hands down the skirt of my velvet dress, green as the woods outside. this was really happening. I need to slow down so I don't stumble over my words. But also I'm kinda excited, so I will be stumbling. Probably. I've been dressed up in my country noble best and shipped off to marry a man I'd never met. Still, I'd made the decision to face the destiny that had been presented to me, and I was going to stick with it. Probably. What would I do if Lord Joffrey had a mean streak? Or worse, if he was violent? I gazed down at my traveling boots, in which I'd managed to conceal a small dagger. It was no doubt insufficient against a man with a lifetime of combat training and an entire troop of guards, but it was all I had. My father would never have allowed me to bring my sword. My troubled thoughts were interrupted as I heard a yell and was thrown backward into my seat. The carriage had stopped. Theo pulled his horse up next to my window with a stern look on his face. He decided to return home to his husband in Nottingham, so he'd volunteered to lead the small escort that was guarding my carriage. Fallen tree across the road. It's probably nothing. Look up tight, just in case. I nodded and pulled the wooden shutters down over the window, locking them securely. The doors were already locked, but I tested them anyway, just to be safe. Surely it couldn't be a bandit trap. The Sherwood Fae were supposed to be quite powerful. They would never let a band of ruffians go around chopping down trees in the woods. I gasped as a loud thump sounded on the carriage roof, followed by shouts and the muffled sounds of battle all around me. Perhaps the Fae weren't as powerful as I thought, but the bandits had found a dead tree to tip. I gritted my teeth as the carriage shook under the weight of the Rooflander's apparent scuffle with our driver. I started thinking of the best way to negotiate over the dowry chest that lay beneath my seat. Honestly, I didn't mind handing over all of it, but I'd be rotted before I allowed them to take me for ransom. After one last mighty shake, the carriage stilled. I heard a quick clicking sound, and the door opposite my seat swung open. Well, hello there. A charming and neatly dressed stranger stood on the other side. Had he picked the lock on the door that fast? He was dressed like a Briton, and I'd heard that folks from South Brittany could be dark-skinned. Or perhaps he was a Zunjati with a fondness for British fashion. That would be odd, at least in this part of the country. Civilization of city-states ruled by wealthy merchant prince families. Okay. Located on the continent south of Avalon, known as the Sunlands, Sunjata is dominated by a monotheistic religion and is the most technologically advanced society in the world. Okay. French-like language, and their society is rapidly moving away from feudalism. That's about what I expected for this world. My voice is lower now. Okay. How about this? Maybe better. He removed his sword belt and slid onto the seat next to me. belt and a pair of long, scabbard swords landed softly on the opposite seat. He languidly crossed one leg over the other, as though he were here for tea. "How's your tea?" Then he turned to me with a thin half smile. "Hello, princess." He spoke in a fine tenor, with no trace of an accent. But, princess? Really? Don't mind me. You just whisper to Mona, I think. I'm trying to kind of sort of voice act, but also not fully, so that might be it. How's the sound now? Is it just a little bit better, or do I need to try and change anything? Or maybe do you need to change something in your settings? I don't know. He then folded his arms and turned his gaze to the opposite wall, seemingly done with conversation. I backed against the door behind me and stared at his fine clothes and apathetic manner. This man couldn't possibly be a bandit, could he? Confused and a bit frightened, I couldn't force my mouth to work for a few moments. Finally, I managed to bleat out, "Who are you?" I'm sorry, but I have to. Wait a minute. Who are you? Sorry. I'm just keeping an eye on you. Boss's orders. Wouldn't want you traipsing off into the forest, would we? He hadn't answered my question, but now I knew he wasn't the boss. Perhaps that august personage was engaged in the lively fight I could still hear outside. I have never heard this being used like this. I mean, I can guess what it means based on where the name of the month comes from. So I'm not gonna look that up. But I did stumble over it. I had a feeling my guards didn't have the advantage. There weren't a lot of them. We hadn't expected this. If I was going to try and escape, best to do it while I only had one man to deal with. I heard it for the first time today too, but at least I'm not alone. I don't want to bribe him. I feel like he's gonna laugh at me if I do that. The bandit didn't appear either slow or foolish, so I needed to rely upon my greatest strength in order to escape. This seems foolish, but I feel like he's gonna laugh at me if I try this one, so... Sayonara! I sighed and slumped back against my seat, trying my best to appear resigned to my fate. The silent man seated next to me appeared similarly relaxed. I could see from the taut line of his jaw that he was actually ready for action. Probably wouldn't be able to get past him and out me inviting the open door on the other side. That left the locked door on my right, which would plunge me directly into the ongoing fracas outside. Perhaps that would be for the best. My guards could probably cover me. I'd have room to pull out my boot dagger as well. But better to go down fighting than stay stuffed in this carriage with the sullen, albeit handsome, stranger. I tensed up as subtly as I could, then lashed my arm out, aiming to unlock the door and shove it open with my foot. That never happened. I don't know exactly what did happen, because before my hand ever touched the ledge, I found myself flipped down onto the seat of the carriage, my captor pinning my wrist above my head and grinning down at me. Nice try. Brave if stupid. There was just the slightest hint of approval in his voice, but it barely registered. My mind was whirl with confusion. How could any mere human move that swiftly? Is he human though? Maybe he's part Fae. Maybe it's Maybelline. Who was this man, and what was he going to do with me if I let him keep me in this compromising position? I scowled up at his smirking visage. Unhand me this instant! He didn't move a muscle. His knees were between my legs, pinning my dress down in such a way that I couldn't even try to kick him efficiently. And let you try to escape again? I don't think so. The boss wants you unharmed, and I can tell you're itching to take a swipe at me. Not recommended, by the way. His smugness was insufferable. Angry and embarrassed, I was about to unleash a string of invectives when I was interrupted by 3 oddly spaced knocks on the closed door behind me. My captor's expression turned serious as he gave me an order. Lift the ledge. He was too smart to move his arm and do it himself, opening himself up to another escape attempt. He barely loosened his grip enough to let me move my own left arm. I reached back and did as I was told. It's open. He called out as he hauled me upright, still keeping a firm grip on my arms. He held them behind my back as the door opened. I peered out and at the man on the other side. Well, hello there. Based on his bold posture and confident half-smirk, this was most certainly the boss. Dressed in expensive-looking leathers, he approached me with the brashness of a bandit and the grace of a nobleman. This experience was getting stranger every minute. Hello, milady. Robin of Locksley at your service. Well, what in blazes are you doing? She's... Oh! I may or may not have thought he was about to ask me to do something like, will you come with me, or anything like that. A part of me did register that it might be a name as well, but... Anyways. She's a handful, boss. Now my captor sounded more fretful than threatening, but he still wouldn't loosen his grip on me. Let me guess. You told her nothing? Figured you'd prefer to do the honors. The man called Robin turned his attention back to me, fixing his face in a welcoming smile. He placed one foot on carriage step and held out a hand to assist me. Sorry about my cousin, Lady Marion. I'm afraid there's not much time to explain, but never fear. Never fear? When they were here for me? When they knew my name? I could see two of my guards over the affable Robin of Locksley's shoulder. They were knocked out and tied together at the side of the road. I glared at the hand outstretched towards me as I tried to gather my thoughts. Oh, for Shadow's sake! Up! With that, Will tossed me unceremoniously at his boss. I let out a pathetic squeak of surprise as I tumbled out of the carriage. But when Robin caught me in his arms, I exploded into a flurry of thrashing limbs and angry punches. I heard Pew yelling for me to run, but I couldn't manage to struggle free. This man's life look was belied by the strength of his grip. He held me tight while dodging my attacks. Hey now, wait, not the eyes. You are a handful. He was laughing, the jerk! Sorry, Cass. I think this'll make things easier. Mr. Tamper had apparently fetched a few lengths of rope with the same unnatural speed I'd seen earlier. He tied my feet together, then my wrists. Robin let out a frustrated sigh as I wriggled ineffectually in his arms. This is not the way to treat a lady, Will. Not my fault she doesn't act like one. And we do need to get out of here before that one gets free and causes trouble. He jerked his thumb back towards the carriage. I turned my head and saw Phil tied to one of the wheels, struggling angrily against his bonds. Several men dressed similarly to Robin were stowing weapons and mounting great stacks before riding them off into the forest. Interesting. Great stacks are like magical creatures. Is there... Let's see. Sorry, got distracted by something I saw for a second. Okay. No, not you. You. Half-fey giant deer-like creatures, both males and females, have antlers and are called stags. Intelligent and capable of forming emotional bonds with humans, agreeing to serve as their mounts. Popular in forested areas like Nottingham Hole Inn. I'm not sure if you will see them in a moment, but they kinda remind me of Hala. So that's all you gotta know. I didn't see anybody trying to loot the carriage itself. An odd fact that occupied my mind until I was distracted by the sound of flapping wings. Aw, that's kinda cute! A large dove nearly smacked me in the head before landing on Will's shoulder. Yeah, they just imagine like Hala, just a little bit more, even more stag-like, with some. At least I think they had some painting on them, like those typical Britannic swirls, Celtic swirls. You probably get a rough idea of what I mean now. Might have been blue. Or maybe I'm making a whole new image in my head. That might be possible as well. Maybe you will see them. It pecked him several times and he swore softly. We need to get out of here. Now. Robin nodded. And also nodded. The two rushed over to a large horse and worked together to hoist me over the saddle. Robin hopped on behind me as I hung there on my belly like a sack of potatoes. Now, if we untie you, will you promise not to struggle? And risk falling off the back of a horse? I may have been hopping mad, but I wasn't stupid. I nodded, and Bill came around to either side, cutting my bonds without comment. Robin helped me up and settled me in front of him in the saddle. His chest pressed against my back as he reached for the reins. It was far too close for comfort. It was strange, though. He didn't stink like most bandits did. Actually, was that cologne I smelled? Robin spurred the horse into a trot down a deer track that led deep into the forest. I looked angrily back at my new captor, hoping he'd be more forthcoming than last one. Who are you? Why are you kidnapping me? It's not a kidnapping, it's a rescue, my lady. What kind of rescue involves tying someone up and carting her into the forest without a by your leave? He chuckled, not looking the least bit repentant. A certain damsel in distress wasn't giving us the benefit of the doubt. A shame, really. Now hush. We're making a getaway from folk who would actually do you harm. And that mouth of yours is far too pretty to gag. Okay. I didn't think he was serious about gagging me, but it only raised my ire. I wanted to smack him so badly. Instead, I let my shoulders sink in humiliation. All those years training with the sword, fighting off bandits and raids from neighboring holdings. I thought I was strong, but these men had made off with me as easily as if I'd been a tiny child. What is going to happen to me now? We rode in silence through the endless green enchantment of Sherwood Forest. Occasionally, Will would pull up beside us on his great stag, communicating with Robin via hand signs. Eventually, we slowed a bit, and I saw a new great stag crop up behind us. Riding it was one of the largest men I'd ever seen. Oh, yeah, him! I've seen him before. He might be a love interest. I do like his design quite a bit. He was definitely Sunchati, though dressed similarly to Robin rather than in the colorful garments most of his merchant countrymen wore. Robin smiled and hailed him softly. What's the news? All clear. The large man nodded genially to me and pulled up beside us as both our mounts slowed to a walk. Hello, Lady Marion. I'm John, Robin's second. It's good to meet you. Unlike Will, he had a noticeable accent. I couldn't help but think it pleasant hearing those round vowels in his deep voice. I found myself smiling back at him briefly before checking myself and schooling my features back into a frown. Hello, John. You seem like a reasonable fellow. Would you mind asking this barbarian here to take me back to my carriage? Both John and Robin chuckled at that, though something about John's manner told me there was no mockery in this laughter. Never fear, we are almost there. Then we can have a nice talk, no? Of course, that was my plan all along. Of course, of course, of course. Such a man of words, such a man of words. I didn't want to have a nice talk. I wanted to get away from the oddest bandits in Avalon and And not much later, I saw my possible salvation appear on the horizon. A bridge across a river. If I could keep Robin from holding me on the horse, I could jump into the river and swim to freedom. Now was the perfect time to grab my boot dagger. I reached one arm down as subtly as I could, pretending I needed to scratch an itch. Looking for your dagger, milady? I'm afraid I already have it. I do like a good boot dagger, though. What? Why did that happen? Probably when they'd been hoisting me onto the horse. Rot this man. I turned my head back to him and retorted angrily, without thinking. Really? What would you do with one? I imagine that a man who has to go around abducting women can't be very skilled at using his dagger. Oops. Still, his face nearly twitched for a second before he moved in closer to my ear and murmured. Care to test that feeling? Just say the word and I'd be happy to give a demonstration. He'd spoken that as an invitation, not a threat, but I refused to be lured in by this charming bastard even. Here's the blonde one, your soon-to-be husband. He has the most punchable face. That is Sir Robin Hood, you know. Steals from the rich, gives to the poor, this one. I wouldn't say he's my soon-to-be husband, but he could be my soon-to-be boyfriend. But he does have kind of a smug face, doesn't he? Certainly, I'll test that theory. Just bring me your 5 angry farmer lovers. I'm sure they'd be happy to tell me all about it. To my surprise, my talk was answered with a genuine laugh. I think I'm going to like you very much, Lady Marion. Not if I could help it. I kept one eye on the approaching bridge. The river looked suitably deep. Good. It was time to improvise. Well, perhaps I could be persuaded not to find you entirely appalling. I smiled slightly at him and reached for his hand, keeping eye contact as I brought it towards my lips. He looked rather pleased by this development. Almost there. Thank goodness his feet were the ones on the stirrups. 3, 2, 1. I kissed the back of his hand, then immediately bit down hard on the skin between his thumb and forefinger. He yelped and yanked his hand back by instinct. I swung my left leg over the saddle and launched myself off and into the river. I'd not had the opportunity to dive in gracefully, and I was hit with the dual shock of the cold rushing water and the pain of my poor angle of entry. For one terrifying second, my body refused to move. Through sheer force of will, I got my arms working and managed to get my head above the water. I then tried to turn my thrashing arms into actual swimming strokes. That's when I realized the critical flaw in my escape plan. I was wearing a well-made velvet dress, which was becoming waterlogged and heavy. It was all I could do to keep from going under as the river's swift current dragged me along. I managed to kick off my boots, but there was no way for me to get out of the dress and stay afloat at the same time. My arms began to tire and I started to panic. That's Probably why I didn't notice the large figure directly in front of me. I collided with a solid chest and was swept into the arms of the large man called John. No! Not after everything! He cradled me in his... He cradled me in his arms! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is a serious moment. Some things stay with you, even though they should leave you alone and go far, far away. To far, far away land. That's another reference I wish I didn't make. He cradled me in his arms like a precious child, but I was too distraught to notice that he was taking such good care of me. Rugged great stacks for being swifter than a rushing river. Rugsman for being so tall that he could simply stand in the river and wait for me to come to him. As he plodded inexorably towards the shore, I punched, kicked, and even tried to bite. It was like fighting a stone. Finally, as we merged and our wet bodies splashed water along the shoreline, I collapsed. It was all too much. I didn't know who these men were or what they wanted from me. I just knew that all my strength and intelligence had been no match for them. My exhaustion, fear, anger, and humiliation poured out of me in wrecking sobs. John stopped and sat us down at the base of a large tree. He let me cry myself out in patient silence, patting my soaked back soothingly. Later, I would notice that he even removed my jewelry for me, as it had been tangled in my wet hair. Eventually, I lifted my head, unsure if there were still tears streaming down my face or if it was just water falling down my hair. They were a bit rough, you know. I am so sorry. They mean well. We don't wish to harm you. I gave a long, shuddering sigh. It's just... Why? What do you want with me? We heard you were coming, and we thought that you probably don't know the truth about the man you're meant to marry. Lord Woodthorpe, the sheriff they call him. We wanted to tell you what he's like, and to help you get away if you wanted. Oh. Then? And why in all the shadows had they not simply told me that in the first place? I took a deep breath to avoid screaming that question at this kind man. He had rescued me from drowning, and then he had taken time to care for me and, at least partially, answered my questions. Will you come with me? I won't leave you alone in the forest, but I promise that you will not be kept against your will once we tell you what we need to know, or what you need to know. He seemed like my best hope in the situation. I didn't have much choice but to decide to trust him, for now. I nodded. With a gentle smile, he stood and helped me to my feet as well. He then took a long look down at me and removed his sodden cloak. Ah, it's wet, but you might want to... Well... I looked down at myself. The neck of my dress had stretched considerably. My breasts were almost exposed. I accepted his cloak with as much regality as I could. wrapping a large garment around myself. It fell down past my knees. I should probably carry you here. He kneeled down and held out his arms so that I could walk into them. Willingly this time. I wondered how I should treat with this man who was both captor and rescuer. Alright, you can carry me just this once, but only because I'm already exhausted from all this struggling. And because you are the nicest one out of all of them so far. I took a step toward him and winced as I snapped a twig beneath my bare feet. Oh, and because I have no more shoes. I'd forgotten about having kicked off my boots in the river. I suspect I wouldn't regret letting John carry me. Despite my waterlogged attire, he lifted me up as though I weighed no more than a twig. A quick whistle to his great stack, which twitched one ear and then bounded off through the woods. He got us on our way. I rested my head on his damp shoulder, and he walked without a word of complaint, despite the fact that his own boots must have been quite waterlogged. He spoke up after a few moments of walking. I'm sorry about my brother. He can be difficult, but he's a good kid underneath. Your Oh, Will? You don't look half brother technically, but a true brother to me. I'm hoping he'll figure himself out one of these days. But never mind that. We fell silent again, and he began singing softly a few moments later. It was a popular ballad about the vengeful ghost of a drowned woman, and I smiled at the reference despite myself. His deep bass singing voice was as pleasant as his spoken one. That is quite the reference, yeah. Because I was about to say, interesting choice you got there. Sometime later, I heard shouts and lifted my head to see Robin and Will waiting at the bridge. Great. I gave them both a sour look as we approached. Thank the light. Lady, what in blazes were you thinking? She wasn't, obviously. Leave her be, you two. We're almost there now, Lady Marion. Robin shook his head. I see she's cozy with you at least, old pal. I'd be jealous if it all wasn't quite so soggy. With that, everyone fell in beside each other, walking their mounts. I began to feel a bit chilled in the early summer forest, but John's body heat kept me from shivering too badly. All these men in the same location, recipe for disaster. I mean, apparently they are all kind of related. They are related, and that means by proxy those two are related as well. Family drama is just meant to happen at this point, really. It wasn't much longer until we stopped in front of what appeared to be a steep mountainside. What now? Robin stepped in front of the group, gesturing like a showman. Okay, maybe you should change your name to whatever the greatest showman was called. This is the best part. Much to my dismay, John followed along as Robin walked us directly at the mountain. I made a small noise of protest. Close your eyes. It's easier the first time. Okay, at least one of you is magical. If not all of you. Why not? I squeezed him shut and felt him carry me forward for far longer than he should have been able to. My stomach began to flip with worry when I realized we should have run into a rock face some time ago. Still, he kept walking. I squeezed my eyes shut as tightly as possible and prayed for the shadow's protection. Alright, you can open them now. I call dibs on this one. That one is mine. That one can be my second home. You can have this one. I did, and what I saw in front of me nearly defied description. Robin grinned as he showed off the absolutely impossible camp we'd wandered into. Lady Marion of Glastonbury, welcome to the headquarters of the rebellion against your fiancé. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. If I thought that Sherwood was an enchanted place, this valley practically glowed with the magic of the Fae. This was the kind of secret forest glen I'd read about in accounts written by the few humans who had wandered into Fairy and managed to return with their sanity intact. A huge clearing stretched out in front of me, but it was not like the kind of cleared land you'd seen in a human settlement. Sure, the stony fire pit in front of me wasn't unusual, but beyond that, the landscape was dotted with cottages that had literally been grown from the earth. Every building in this camp was constructed of living trees, with hardly a sign of tool, use, or human construction to be found. This camp had to have been directly crafted by the Fae. No druid had the power to command plants in such a manner. Who were these people who had captured me? I tore my eyes from his side and opened my mouth to ask a question of Robin when we were interrupted by a loud shout. Light above and shadow below! Light above and shadow below! What did you boys do to this poor lass? Hello? I quite like your design. A thoroughly ordinary middle-aged woman bustled over to us, looking quite cross. You have about as many moles as I do. Just saying. Ah, Nell. Meet Lady... No. Meet Lady Marion, who... Yes. Time for that later. My lovely, let's get you cleaned up and out of wee Johnny's cloak. She grabbed my hand and giggled at the reference to wee Johnny. I giggled. Sheer exhaustion mixed with wonder at this magical place had made me compliant. My new acquaintance chatted at me as she pulled me along through the camp, leaving my speechless abductors behind. Apparently, they knew better than to intervene. I'm Nell, the tailor for this rowdy bunch. Used to have a shop in Nottingham, and I paid my taxes right and all. But then the sheriff's men started asking for even more money. For protection, they said. From them more like. I held them off until they said they'd burn the shop down. And now I'm here, thrown in with this lot. That's awful. I'm Marion. I'm well, kidnapped, I guess. Nell caught the sarcastic look on my face and chuckled. We left the main camp and were walking on a flower-lined dirt path towards what sounded like a waterfall. You'll be alright, my lovely. We'll get you cleaned up and then the boys can tell you what they're all about. You'll be needing some new clothes, methinks. I hope you don't mind tunic and trousers. I have some small ones I can take in right quick. Oh, thank you, that's just fine. In truth, I'd always wondered what it would be like to dress like a man. So I was delighted by Nell's lack of deference to my nobility. Perhaps she hadn't heard Robin's aborted introduction and didn't even know my status. I decided not to enlighten her. As we walked along, the crashing sound of the waterfall became louder. Nell stopped in front of a cleverly designed sign with Made and female symbols painted onto them. A wooden arrow perched on top of the sign, and she moved it over the female symbol. God damn it! Even in this magical forest, I don't belong. Damn it! Now, please. We moved on, and the forest cleared to reveal a gorgeous waterfall basin. Nell smiled to see my obvious pleasure in the scene and tapped me along the water's edge until we reached a warm, steaming cave off to the side of the falls. Yeah, I gotta say, this is like the kind of cave I always wanted to enter. Like, I quite like bioluminescent things, even though when it's on the roof of a cave, it's usually like glowworms, which it might not be as pretty in real life when you see it up close. But I'd be willing to risk that just to be in a cave like this. Those walls were lined with glowing fairy worms, and worms, okay! And I caught a whiff of rotten eggs in the air. Oh. We passed into a large cavern, and the steamy pools I saw there made me exclaim in delight. Hot springs. I'd never seen hot springs before. They were a bit smelly, but their warmth beckoned to me, to my shivering, weary body. Oh, worm. If I ever saw a lass who needed a hot spring, it's you. Will you stay put for now a while? Gladly. I was done running. I didn't know if it was possible to find a way out of this magical valley on my own, and my energy was thoroughly spent. Besides, I was now far too curious about this fate-touched place to want to leave it just yet. Nell pulled the tape from her apron pockets and did some quick measurements. She then left, and I stripped and soaked away my stressful day. A pile of towels had been helpfully left by the springs, along with a veritable banquet of herbal medicines and poultices. I'd somehow managed to escape injury on the rough journey here, but this was yet another sign that these rebels were uncommonly civilized. Sometime later, Nell returned to find me stretched out asleep on a towel, luxuriantly naked in the warm cabin. Why can I... Okay. She She woke me and presented me with new clothes. Boots didn't fit quite right, but she promised they were temporary. That is looking good, to be honest. Also quite enjoyed being able to see more. I stretched curiously, feeling the trousers move against my legs. If nothing else, this attire was a new kind of adventure for me. After some quick hair detangling, I felt words better. I was ready to face my captors, or rescuers as they would have me believe. Okay, you are not the first one I wanted to see. I wanted to see your cousin. Or maybe your cousin's brother. Sorry, Robert. I like them more than you. Once I was fully changed and ready, Nell showed me to the guest cabin, where a somewhat subdued Robin was waiting for me. I sat down across him on a surprisingly sturdy mushroom stool. Robin's eyes widened when he took in my attire. Milady, oh, I'm so sorry. We can find you something more fitting. But see, poor Robin, he's trying so hard to entertain you. Yeah, but he's also just being like, oh yeah, go back into your dress. I know he thinks I want this, but I don't. No, please, this is quite comfortable. Never mind that. This is... What is all this? I gestured to the furniture and the vagrant cabin in general. It's a bit of a tale, but I'd like you to hear it. Peace? He held out his hand, then pulled it back slightly in mock concern. If you'd keep your teeth to yourself this time. I wanted to give him an earful, but the way he treated me thus far, and yet his unexpected sincerity, along with his natural charm, lowered my defenses. I suppose there was no real harm in hearing him out. As long as you behave. I gave him an uneasy smile, which he returned, readily looking relieved. Then he sat back and began his tale. I hope you'll excuse me. I'll have to be serious for a moment. It's not my forte. I nodded. 2 years ago, John and I returned from the war to find that Nottingham was a right mess. My father was killed by the Nibarians, so I was the new Lord of Loxley Holding, north east of Nottingham. So sorry. He bowed his head briefly in acknowledgement of my sympathy. So, yes, you know about Prince John and his taxes. And I know we have debts to pay, but here in Nottingham and the holdings nearby, it hasn't been fair to all. I'm afraid my fellow nobles have been pushing all the burden onto the crafters and merchants, even onto farmers and other serfs. They're hurting while we feast on our manners. Despicable. Indeed. And so, a year ago, there was a rebellion planned in Nottingham. The old Lord Nottingham was awful. A vain, greedy tyrant. I know, I should have just looked to my own holding, but that never was my family's way. I helped fund the rebellion, gave them places to meet, decided I'd help them fight, though I didn't want to take Nottingham for myself. It might have worked too, But someone betrayed them, betrayed me too. The rebels were gathered in Sherwood, and I was about to join them to march on Nottingham. Before I could, Lord Geoffrey of Woodthorpe showed up at my door with an arrest warrant for sedition. It was signed by Prince John himself. Lord Geoffrey, the man I was supposed to marry. Things were starting to come together now. I learned later that Lord Nottingham and his guard had ambushed the rebellion on the edge of Sherwood Forest. His face twisted into a look of grief and regret. It was a bloodbath. If only I'd been there. Maybe I could have. He shook his head. But I wasn't there. The only good thing to come of it was that Nottingham and his son were killed, leaving no heirs. Prince John and his personal army rode into Nottingham as fast as they could, declared marital law, martial law, destroyed the guilds, even those that had refused to take part in the rebellion. Then he installed Geoffrey of Woodthorpe as the provisional lord of Nottingham. Folk called Geoffrey the sheriff, since he seems more lawman than lord. Robin took a cleansing breath, and I saw the unusual light begin to return to his eyes. As for me, my dear cousins John and Will sought to free me from my prison. They met an ex-druid called Tuck, who helped them break me out of the condition that we assist him with some sort of mysterious quest he's on. He claims to be working on behalf of the Rose King and the Wolf Queen. The Fey Lords of Sherwood? That's impossible! Wildling and Greenling. Ever since the signing of the pact, the Fae had never recruited humans to do their bidding. And yet, you believe your eyes, do you not? He gestured around at the impossible cabin in the impossible camp. It was true. I had no better explanation. I'd like to speak with this Tuck. That's because you haven't met him yet. Anyhow, this camp was prepared for us. Tuck uses his considerable powers to assist our cause, and in return, we shelter him, feed him, and don't ask too many questions. We have our own problems. Things didn't get better in Nottingham after the sheriff took over. They got worse. Geoffrey's guard is thoroughly corrupt. I'm sure Nell told you her story. I nodded. She's not alone. A good half of the folk here are crafters and merchants who were turned out of their homes by the guard. And many of the rest faced worse. Indentured servitude if they're caught holding money, or simply can't afford to pay their taxes in the first place. I inhaled deeply in shock. But that's practically slavery! Indeed, and conditions worsen every day in Nottingham's poor districts, with hardly anyone hiring labor anymore. That's where we come in. How are you acting on all of that from here? I won't lie, it's rough for us. Geoffrey has the soldiers, the weapons, money, and the power. But we have one thing he'll never be able to take from us. A ridiculous amount of optimism. the power of public opinion. He paused for effect and noted the skepticism written across my face. Putting on a particularly charming smile, he leaned in like a bard telling a children's tale. What do the people long for most when times are rough? Proper food and shelter? Of course, but they need more than that. They need a hero to give them hope. A powerful man who is on their side. One day can rally around around as we rallied to King Richard in the war. They say heroes come from the light, right? But what happens when those in the light are venal and wicked? That's when your hero has to come from the shadows. An outlaw hero. What do you do? Sneak into Nottingham and give inspiring speeches? He laughed. We protect them from the sheriff's goons. We rescue those who have been indentured. And best of all, we steal from the rich and give to the poor. You philanthropic bandits. Exactly. And let me tell you, the sheriff is infuriated by us. More folk are joining our cause every day, and hopefully we'll soon have enough for a real rebellion. I had to admit, his enthusiasm and strength of will were infectious, even if I wasn't entirely sure whether he was genius or a madman. But that aside, Lady Marion, we have a spy in the sheriff's manor, and when she told us about you, we knew we had to rescue you from a future with that man. And now that I've met you, well, you're brave, intelligent, and beautiful. He doesn't deserve a woman like you. So, what would you bid me do now that I'm your prisoner instead? I may have said that more pointedly than necessary, but the way they'd rescue me is still stunning. Now that you've heard the truth about Lord Geoffrey, you're free to leave at any time. We'll help you return to your father if you like. I assume he'll agree to break your engagement to a man who cannot even protect his own roads from bandits? You're probably right. You might even keep your engagement, not that I'd recommend it. Of course, there's a price to be paid if that's your choice. We'll have to ransom you to him, dearly. He gave me a challenging look, one that I returned with equal heat. Let me think on it. Very well. He rose and stretched. You may stay with us in this cabin as long as you wish. Dinner will be served shortly, and I believe the lads have a small welcome celebration planned for you. How awkward would it be if I now said, yeah, actually just take me back to my husband-to-be. I'm gonna rattle you out. Rat you out even. Like, that's just the easiest way to get you, right? Not sure what he's gonna do then. Indeed. And let's see what entertainment the bandits of Sherwood can provide. I took Robin's proffered arm and he escorted me back to the center of the camp, where a rustic but well-prepared meal had been laid out upon rough-hewn stone tables. Robin's company of rebels numbered some 30 members, largely men. They were dressed similarly too, though more simple than their leader. All eyes turned to us as we approached the central camp. Robin cleared his throat and spoke out in a clear voice of an experienced leader. My fine fellows, may I introduce to you the Lady Marion of Glastonbury, who will be our fine guest for some time. The assembled rebels applauded me politely. I hope you will treat her with all due respect and demonstrate to her that we are finer folk than Lord Joffrey's court of vipers. A cheer arose at that proclamation. Robin smiled to see it and gestured for their attention once more. I trust you all have your duties for the morrow. Please see Master John if you need further instruction. Rebels of Sherwood, we hold the line. Until when? Until King Richard returns! Long live King Richard! Long live King Richard! And now we eat, drink, and make merry! His speech complete, Robin led me to a table away from the main hurly-burly of the feasting rebels. King Richard, You believe he lives? A shadow crossed his face at my question. But he took it off quickly and turned his usual winning smile on me. Naturally, I know him, lady. We became acquainted during the war. His leadership brought us safely through this conflict, yes. But he's so much more than a simple war hero. He believes, as I do, that things need to change in Avalon. The people need more control over their own destiny. Cruel and greedy lords must be unseated. He will return. He must return. But that's enough of that. Shall we speak of merrier things? Of course. There was more I wished to ask, but Robin seemed to be a man inclined towards joviality despite his dearly held convictions. I let him steer the dinner conversation. He was a perfectly charming companion, and I was feeling quite relaxed by the time the sun was dipping below the horizon. The rebels began pulling out instruments and clearing space in the middle of the camp. Speaking of, I love the music. Like, if they end up having some OST you can buy, I will probably get it. Because, like, I could definitely see myself playing that in the background for some tabletop or just relax. It is quite a great score. A young man trotted over to Robin and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and placed a hand on my shoulder. I'll be back soon, milady. I was left alone as the sun set, sitting on the edge of the growing festivities. The rebels had been directing curious gazes at me for some time, but were keeping a respectful distance. I suppose that even these outlaws respected the barriers between commoners and nobility, so I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Alternatively, you're probably right, but alternatively, they might also keep their distance because you have been kidnapped, you are a woman, and they don't want to scare you? Overstep? You know, the only thing that would make this a little bit better, which is really just me being not nitpicky because I don't mean this to be nitpicky at all. But if the fire were to move, that would be even cooler. Several men were building up a bonfire in the fire pit, and those who had brought instruments were tuning up. I spotted John amongst them, sitting with an unusual drum between his legs. It took a bit longer to find Will, who was leaning against a tree on the edge of the clearing, arms and legs crossed. It would be nice to find a way to occupy myself, be it with one of the new acquaintances or by satisfying my curiosity about the wider rebellion. Yeah, I want to use both of those. But he's been really nice thus far. So I want to see him. I've always had a bit of a contrary streak. Seeing my erstwhile carriage bandit looming at the edge of the crowd, I couldn't help but want to needle him a bit. I strolled over to Will, who gave me a half-cautious, half-questioning look. Hello, Will. Are you going to stand here like a stick in the mud, or are you going to dance? Do I look like someone who knows how to dance? I eyed his fancy outfit. Frankly, yes. Well, I don't. Calm down, I'll teach you. This is a 3-step. It's easy. He grimaced, but I held out my hand. Out insistently. Let out a heavy sigh and heaved himself off the tree. Still, he managed to summon enough menace to take my hand and lead me into the circle. I'm gonna bet he and John are probably going to be the most popular love interests. John because he fits into tall, dark, and handsome, plus kind. Will because everybody likes a broody guy standing in a corner that is hard to get. Gonna leave it at that. Start the game for a slow and cozy evening with apple cinnamon tea. Well, it is the season for cinnamon and pumpkin spice and all of that. So I hope you can relax. You should pick this up quickly if you're skilled with swordplay. I demonstrated the simple pattern for dance, and while his movements were clumsy at first, he was indeed a quick study. I signaled to the musicians to continue in the same rhythm, and Will groaned as John grinned at us in the light. You two really are brothers, aren't you? Half brothers, but yes, I'm afraid we are. I shook my head, thinking of how John had been nothing but kind and understanding to me during my ordeal in the woods. Who wouldn't want to be related to him? But then, I didn't have any siblings. Maybe I just didn't understand. Well, let's show him what you can do then. I gently guided Will's hands to the proper hold location for the dance and counted him in. This time he caught him faster than I expected. Wait. His posture was perfect and he was leading with confidence. I hadn't actually taught him any of that. So he'd known how to dance all alone. For some reason wanted me to think he didn't. I couldn't bring myself to broach the topic though, and completely loved the feeling of dancing with a strong and capable leader. Instead, I relaxed into the soul and enjoyed the natural push and pull of the dance. He had none of the gawkiness that sometimes burdened tall young men, moving with grace and confidence now that he'd stopped pretending to be awkward. A few songs later, he inclined his head to me and stepped back. Are you satisfied now, princess? It's Marion, and yes, thank you, you did very well. We walked together back to the edge of the crowd, and Will didn't object when I sat next to him on one of the rocks that bordered the camp's central area. We watched the others dance the rest of the evening, Will amusing me with mildly acerbic observations of the participants. I found him rather pleasant company now that he'd softened to me a bit. As twilight darkened into the night and the bonfire burned down, the rebels began to drift back to their long houses and cabins. Will stood up and offered me a hand. Suppose I should show you back to your cabin. How gallant of you. He fetched a couple of lanterns that shone with an unusual blue glow. Were those will-o'-the-wisps in there? I suppose the living trees and plants could be coaxed into growing into the shape of buildings. Will-o'-the-wisps could be coerced into serving as lanterns. There were so many questions running around in my mind that I had no idea where to start. Lanterns in hand, Will escorted me back to my guest cabin, and I bade him good night. Just as I was starting to open the door, I heard him clear his throat awkwardly. I looked back at him. Robin's charming. And my brother, well, he gets on with everyone. Why did you choose to keep me company tonight? Did I detect a hint of the real Will under that sardonic front? It was a rather sweet question, but I knew better than to make a big deal of it. I guess you could say I like a bit of a challenge, and since you're dressed like a gentleman, I was curious if you could actually act like one. I see. I think I'll let you keep your final judgment on that to yourself. With a curt wave, he turned and vanished into the night. I smiled to myself as I entered my cabin. No! Not my music! Inside my cabin, I plopped the lantern down on a wooden burl table and collapsed onto the bed. There were night clothes in my size sitting on the end of the bed. That must have been what Nell was doing during the party. No, I wondered what the expected exchange was for favors done by a person who wasn't one's vassal. I'd never faced such a transaction before. Work done neither out of obligation nor for currency. That question would have to wait for the morning. I shrugged out of my day clothes and into the night ones, then buried myself beneath the blankets. I stared at the blue light across the way. How exactly do I douse a magic lantern? I spoke to myself, but the floating orbs blinked softly, then went out. Well, that was that then. Sleep claimed me in an instant. And also, not gonna end right now, but I will take a very short break to drink. and look for the perfect time to end my stream after. But as I was saying, not ending it right now. Just be right back for a moment. See you. I have returned with my little kitty cat, who will now join in on this game. But as I was saying earlier, I will not be streaming for too much longer. Just see a little bit where it leads me still. And then either play it again some other time. Or, finish it on my own. Well, as far as I can finish it right now. But tomorrow there will be something else. And I will be writing a review as well. As hopefully always when I play something. Well, from now on. Welcome back. Thank you, thank you. I was awakened by birdsong and mottled light beaming through my window. It took me a few moments to get oriented, as my mind ran over where I was and how I'd come to be here. Right then, it was time to get to it. What exactly was I going to do now? I was in a good position to negotiate for my own freedom with my father. If Robin of Locksley was as good as his word, and I suspected he was, I'd have assistance and shelter while I extricated myself from my engagement. On the other hand, who was to say that my father wouldn't simply begin looking for another nobleman upon whom to palm me off? And was becoming a good lady of a whole truly what I wanted out of life? Just months ago, it was the only future I could have seen. But today, I was starting to get an idea, a crazy, dangerous idea that would turn my entire life upside down. It felt like a new door was opening to me if only I were brave and reckless enough to walk through it. I'd always thought of myself as an eminently sensible person. Was it time to throw that away? Or time to reclaim that identity? One second. Gotta check what options I have right now. Okay. So that should be all I can actually pick right now, if I'm not mistaken. But in about 1 month and a few days or so, there will be more options. Oh, I didn't read. I had a sense that Robin would keep his promise of a safe return if I desired, and yet before me stood a grand adventure that could change my life for good or for ill. Join the rebellion. True, Robin and his friends might have been a bit balmy, but I had my own goals in mind. If this rebellion succeeded, I'd have personally assisted Nottingham's new leaders. That was an excellent position to be in. Besides, I didn't have to stick around if things looked like they were going south. And in the meantime, I had a place from which I could figure out what I wanted from my future, safe from my father's intervention. Hello? And who are you? Mind made up. Okay, ironically, this is more what I had in mind when I was thinking about Robin Hood. Which, let me just quickly Google it to see if there's like any reason why I... Okay, it's probably the fox. It's probably because of the fox character. Because if I look at the... Please load. Yeah, the Once Upon a Time character, who is like the other version of Robin Hood I have usually in mind, it doesn't look like that. He's... Actually, he doesn't have red hair, but his looks aren't too dissimilar to this one. And this is the kind of Robin Hood I imagined. Who is he? I strode confidently out of my cabin and spotted Robin and his lieutenant sitting around a stone table in some distance away. They looked up at me as I approached, but I took my time, taking a seat and smiling pleasantly at them. I'd learned from bitter experience that the first step to being taken seriously was to act as though my inclusion was a matter of course. Robin and John looked at me with cheerful expectation. Will appeared uninterested, idly carving a block of wood with a small sharp knife. But the final face at the table was the one that drew my attention. Well, you are not wrong. You are not wrong with that at all. This new man looked more like a bandit than anyone I'd met the day before. He does? I mean, I suppose. But he's dressing awfully nice for somebody meant to be a bandit. Dear God, they're all so tall with perfectly shaped eyebrows. Could drive a man crazy. Maybe he too is a hidden relative. Sorry. His rusty red hair was artfully disheveled, as was his dark-hued outfit. He had several days' beard growth and some obvious scars on his face. I mean, yes and no, you do notice them. But I wouldn't say they are really obvious. Like, if he put his hair in the other direction, you wouldn't notice them. Sorry. There was a rugged handsomeness about him that drew the eye. True. He sat down on a wine goblet that he'd been idly swirling and put out his hand. Not on the... because he's not tiny, but he set it down anyways. Leighton Tuck, resident druid. I assumed, he said simply, taking my hand and shaking it firmly instead of kissing it. I raised my eyebrows and heard Robin chuckle. As well-mannered as always. Pray forgive him, my lady. He doesn't have proper respect for any of his betters. His betters? If I ever met my brothers, Loxley, I'll be sure to summon some respect. There. That long utterance betrayed a Spanish accent. Interesting. It wasn't often that somebody made it to this side of the world. Robin's mysterious druid was becoming more and more of a puzzle. Clan-based society. So, Scottish? Okay, yeah, Scottish. Which makes sense. I mean, technically, I guess Irish is also on the table, but it's most likely just meant to be Scottish, right? I feel like this gives it away as well. I miss living in England. Because I feel like I should know what this references, but I don't. Leighton the Druid, huh? He doesn't look the part, no offense. I mean, who says a druid has to look like all dressed in green, long beard, and whatever? I feel like those Celtic-esque? Would you call them nuts? Oh, rather. Yeah, you would. Okay. Those Celtic knots, they might also just be a little giveaway. But he kind of... No, that's... I'm gonna shut up before I say anything else about the designs, because clearly I don't remember my shit well enough. Yes. Anyhow, Lady Marion, you look like you have something to say. Yes, I've decided what I want to do next. I took a breath. I'd like to join your rebellion. A hush fell around the table. Robin looked cautiously pleased, and Leighton appeared thoughtful, not scheming. It was difficult to tell. John seemed concerned, while Will looked angry for some reason. After a beat, Robin broke the silence. Well now, this is unexpected news. But welcome news all the same. We'll be sure to take very good care of you, Lady Marion. Wait, are you too serious? What can she possibly contribute? She's a lady. She doesn't have a trade. She doesn't have... I cut him off with a cross look. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I may have failed to show my worth on the road yesterday, but now things were under my control. I'd be happy to show you what I can do. Would someone kindly fetch me a sword? Oh, okay. Chapter 2, Sherwood. My future in my own hands. I didn't expect this to be here. So I will ramble on for a little bit. But this is the perfect opportunity for me to say I wasn't gonna play for too much longer. Even though we're just about to get to the best part, which is the dating part. Where I would have the options of Robin and Will, if I remember correctly. It's way too quiet now. Can I open this game a second time? No, didn't really think so, but um in that case, let me save. Hello. Yes, please. No! I can't listen to all great music. I was hoping I could click on anything. But also, doesn't that just mean I get to listen to the soundtrack for free? Let me pay you money. Sorry. Um, I demand a Made Marion stream series. It will release more in November. So at the latest it will return then. If demand is strong enough, hint hint. What else? Interesting. I'm going to go back because this has some titles that might be spoilers. But as I was saying, I wasn't planning to stream for too long now. Partially because it's not fully released, partially because I have a few more games that I wanted to check out. I was about to say need to check out, which technically not completely true. At least not for today. I need to check them out in general because A, I want to, and B, I have been kindly provided with those games. But yeah, Made Marion. Fantastic music. I want to pay them money for more music. Let me use it in tabletop or, anywhere. Please allow me to use it. Thank you. I guess if I continue, or rather when I continue, I might need to go after Moody's demand for Robin, who is the token blonde. Because I have two options right now. And other than that, I've had a lot of fun playing this game thus far. Maybe he can capture your heart after all, steal it even. Listen, I usually date everyone in dating games anyways. Gotta know my options, So, he has quite some chances to try and steal my heart. I mean, most of the time, I end up liking everyone anyways. But I do tend to know who's gonna end up my favorite rather quickly. And considering we don't have all the characters yet, there's still some room. But I did mention that I'm probably a basic one. But also, we have a new contender for somebody who might be popular. So I'm not going to make any guesses anymore on who's going to be popular until I actually played the full release. Yeah, famous last words. I'm probably gonna go back on that if I stream or when I stream it again. November then. Gonna remind you, hopefully. Okay, but until then, you should do as my kitty does and rest and drink and be merry and pet me and kiss fall in love in the Fall in Love Festival. And I will most certainly play this more on or off stream, probably both. Let's be real. Because I don't think I'm at that point where I can stream every little scene. But I can stream one or several routes. That should be doable. But anyways, stay hydrated. Have a good day. Good night. A good time. Kiss your cats. Or any animal you might have. Your husband, wife, spouse. Some would compare them to animals, I guess. Which I wouldn't mean in the weird way. More like cute puppy. Anyways. I will see you next time with another game that I've shit on.